my name is Allister Banks. I'm at Sacrilegious, as it says on the Twitter. I'm a solutions architect for 318 Inc., the world headquarters of which is in California, but I'm based in NYC. Now, the thing about having a poll is it helps me to get an idea of what's going on, like I had shown last year. There's also a outline or glossary. People really like handouts, I noticed, in education, that they like to have like something that they could possibly print to Dead Tree and have a little bit of a map of what's going on. Obviously, I just redid my slide. But this is a URL that you can hit right now. I've shortened it because I like vanity, where you can see not only an outline, but there's a glossary, a 3-letter acronym cheat sheet, and on the second page of it is a copy-pastable guide, essentially, to everything we'll be doing in the lab later. So in the second session, we'll be going into a lab. The first page is just an outline for this here talk. To get right into it, so we're pretty close to represented by folks. Yeah, so still more than half of people not actually using InstaDMG. The other poll that I would like to look at is for LocalMCX. Now this should have changed that URL, pollev.com/arrow. It should have changed the poll to this. You can also use text messaging. I don't know why they actually have that. It's for people that don't have computers. We have a couple of those in here. But yes, from directory services, #1 with a bullet. Anyway, so again, that outline. But if you guys wouldn't mind checking in, LocalMCX I'm going to describe in detail, but managed preferences is what I'm talking about. Group policy objects would be the analog in the Windows world. I'd like to know everybody's experience when it comes to that as well. I'm not going to pull the ever-living heck out of you. I just would like a little bit of a frame of reference as I'm going along. It does help me. And yay, my transitions are so sweet. Okay, so something else to just put right here first and foremost is everybody's phones are on silent, maybe. And if you wouldn't mind, you're all really quiet. It is like you're paying attention. But if you wouldn't mind only using the computers for like the poll widget, there's actually a feedback widget as well, so that you can put any text or questions you may have. It's something that I've not particularly appreciated when I'm in a session and somebody interrupts the speaker when they're not really ready to take questions, and it's kind of like we all took a detour for one person's question. And so I would really appreciate if people instead used this URL, and then it's another one of these poll everywhere widgets, but it specifically is any old text. So for example, last year, one of the things I got in feedback was, hey, when did Andy Kaufman show up? Keep the accent going. What is an SVN? That was particularly, what's the pseudo password? Citation needed. You know, it was just a fun time. But enough about enough about my tools. It's just like, if you have any sort of question whatsoever, I'm hoping to get to that in the Q&A session. I'll be looking at that widget to be able to gather them all together. So whether or not you want to go to that now, it's that vanity URL/PSU poll. And please don't hold out hope that I might cover your topic. There's stuff that I'm going to be referring to that was recorded from last year when it comes to a lot of the details. But if you have any questions whatsoever, I'm hoping we're going to have time, especially during the lab when I'm going around, to cover those. So like, enter your feedback and damn the torpedoes. Go ahead and try it all out. So to get right into the content, there's seat somewhere, rock and roll. What Now, people start some presentations with dictionary definitions, even though it's sometimes unavoidable to say certain things, you know, to cover material that people may already know, like saying, you know, that's beyond the scope of this conversation. I'm only talking about this little tool. I'm actually going to start with the absolute obvious of what imaging is. This is state of the imaging onion, not just these two particular, the InstaDMG tool and the LocalMCX, you know, method of putting managed preferences on machines. I'm kind of making an unholy marriage out of that. But the state of the imaging onion is because I have a very opinionated way of doing things. I've found success with certain things, like in practice, deployed live out there on production systems. So just to go over the basic term of what imaging is, a computer's storage is made to have the admin specified software and settings. Now, it can be a time-intensive setup process to go through the steps required for this. We're going to go through all of them, however, in the lab because we're going to have a limited scope. We should be able to get it all the way through and start building stuff. But the more important part is when we're imaging these many computers to all have the exact same contents, you're starting with a known good state. That helps us in the respect that there's very little in the way of variation between the deployed computers or that which is put in the end user's hands for them to begin using. It would be good to explain the verb or action of imaging / deploying / restoring computers. And that's like the healer with the laying on of hands. You put the bits down on the disk. It goes to sleep nighty-night. And we're not just using a more inefficient or slower file-by-file method of copying or pushing the set of software out. This is more of a shotgun-like style way of packing the data into a format and then blasting it out. Now, when it comes to Windows products that people may be familiar with, there's just creating the image and for in certain environments, restoring that image. There's Norton Ghost, Cronus True Image. ImageX is one of the cooler toys I've heard about on the Windows side of things, or Microsoft's tools for System Center. When you Pixie boot / use the Fogs Linux-based project, you can also be deploying Windows images that way. Imaging, I'm encompassing kind of both of those steps, but really just the stuff that you load into the imaging console that then gets blasted out onto the computers. On the Mac, we have a couple of free tools to restore images, but the most powerful or common ways that I've heard about just about anywhere that aren't already haven't already decided what tool they use, they're generally adopting Deploy Studio. And you can really turbocharge things when you are using NetBoot over the network, preferably over a wired gigabit connection. And continuing with the what theme, just to bring it home, because we had a lot of Windows text last year. You know, a DMG that is the format a image will be prepared into. It's kind of like an ISO, how packaged software is distributed. We have the image prepared to be blasted out over the network with a certain tool I'll be discussing later, and that's kind of the difference between regular software in DMG format and a image that's an entire set of what a computer is supposed to look like. And just a refresher, especially because we're talking about Lion updates this year, volume not equal partition. So right here, when you're clicking the Erase tab at the root of the hard drive, it says, hey, you want to erase all data on a disk or volume. That's one of the only places in this interface that volume shows up. But volume is really a container that already has a format. Like when we're using these terms, I just want to kind of get everybody on the same page regarding it, whether or not you agree with my interpretation. So images get restored to partitions, which would normally have volumes in them, not an entire hard drive encompassing all the zeros and ones. What also do we not see on here? The recovery partition. It is hidden on this exact volume, on this exact hard disk. The process of erasing the root of a hard drive will reset it to one partition and place a volume inside in it, because that's what it's allowing us to do in the Erase tab here. But the difference is a volume has a file system format like HFS plus. A partition is laid down with a scheme like GPT. They talk about partitioning schemes. So that's a brief tour as to what imaging is. and some of the terms defined. And I wish I was much of a baller as my boss. I can call my boss a baller, right? That's okay. He's not here. He was able to predict that the Mac App Store was coming at Mac System in Europe. That actually totally pricked up my ears when I heard that. That was like 2 years ago. And after he saw how successful, the iOS App Store was. So let's make some history today. Here's my pronouncement of what's coming in the future. We, all of us, Mac users, will have our iCloud-enabled app settings backed up, and you'll be able to log in on a new computer with your Apple ID and get all of those settings down. So whatever's in the now hidden for good reason library folder, because iCloud is touching that stuff and we would like to keep prying eyes out, we would like to save people from themselves, that will sync up and down. I don't think that's particularly revolutionary to say. You can already reset passwords with your Apple ID. You might have noticed in Lion on the setup assistant. So that's just taking it one step further. I don't think I'm getting myself too far out of the loop. Not that I have any inside information whatsoever. But why are we imaging as admins? Más no basta. So I don't know Spanish at all. This was a play on the fact that Mac App Store, no más. So you can imagine a workflow that people coming to IT don't particularly understand what we need to do, why we need to repackage stuff all the time. Why are you guys dealing with all these packages so much? Because I like sign in with my Apple ID and the Mac App Store has all my software. There is no step 3? Maybe? Well, the Mac App Store is just not sufficient. iCloud, Apple IDs are not sufficient, at least for now. So continuing on the why, this is what we will be tasked with as admins. For my organization, I have systems and services that I need to interact with that are provided by my organization. I need those to perform my job. I have site license software, not VPPs that therefore are all full retail price, for example. So imaging is a tool in system administrators' hands to cut through the less appropriate features of stock customer-focused computers or consumer-focused. And you get back to a known good state with a nuke and pave, but quick. We see the workflow all the time. The conversations happen. All those computers need to be refreshed. Let's make sure they're ready with software X for group Y. That's a normal, command coming down from above to say hey, we have these new machines. Let's get them to where we need them to go. And imaging does help us as to why we need to. This is why we need to tackle imaging. Now, one machine with a network connection can be made indistinguishable from every other one, and therefore with a certain amount of quality assurance on our part, it will be able to more reliably present the custom configured environment that's been requested, whether or not they know that they wanted our level of precision as to how we wanted to approach and make it as easy as possible for them. We're all doing this in the service of our customers. And the concept of QA or quality assurance / quality control through testing is integral to our desire as sysadmins of changing the things that aren't as we want them and preemptively presenting customers with a stable working experience. And I'm one of those people who do really like the word customer. I do feel that everybody's like they're kind of my peers, but I do work in service to them. Now that was the what imaging is, the why, and now how it benefits us. Now it helps that we like working hard to begin with. The fact the entire field of IT is a moving target should show that to most people. When I worked in theater, the lighting guys would say, "You don't notice my job until something totally screws up, do you?" And that's kind of similar with IT. Well, in our practices and when collaborating with each other, we revel in the processes that let us show off to each other. Look at how fast I can lay this image down. But we, at the same time, we enjoy being a little lazy ourselves. Instead of having to do busy work. So that should cover what imaging is, why we do it. When it comes to how it benefits us, when hardware is at issue, you can play, one of these things is not like the other one. One is a little bit strange. When you want less superfluous network traffic or have large or time-intensive things to install, putting it in the image is kind of similar to automating it. We could all, make them all with our master of puppets, go to our wills, but having it in the image to begin with means all of that guesswork is already out of the way. We're already done with how we're going to get it out on people's workstations. And now people also wonder, how am I going to manage bundled Mac App Store apps like iPhoto? I have a new machine that just came, and I'm going to use thin imaging, and then the Mac App Store is going to have a badge on it. And it's going to bother me about things, and it's going to make help desk calls. Well, if those receipts are not there in the first place, that's saying like, hey, this machine is valid, we just want you to really sign in with an Apple ID. Please, come on, don't you wanna? Instead, if we just blow the image sky high and put one that we've QA'd down, then we are managing iPhoto as it was distributed and on retail disks a while ago. Yes, act now, this is a limited time offer. At any moment now, we could have a new version of any of the iLife apps. But at least, they're decoupled now. Maybe that's nicer. But wait, that's not all. If you follow your radio correspondence textbook on how to image Macs, which I'm sure that you all have in the 15-part series that you download. Anyway, you can load this image that you've quality assured and customized into a Deploy Studio workflow, which has an iTunes interface that a good amount of people are able to understand. And you, yes, you can have interns hold down the N key instead of you. And go ahead and find the workflow that you decided upon. All of your customers get a workstation that's in tip-top shape, yet you didn't actually have to go to their desk. The butts and seats metric is a good one to follow for how effective you can be as an engineer, as an administrator. So that's the goal state of affairs. And I've got plenty of material to cover the basics first. Again, I'm going from 0 to 60. Whether or not you agree with the importance or way I use certain terms or concepts will at least be on the same page. First, as I do in all of my presentations, a disclaimer. Now, you've heard the term, he knows not just enough to be dangerous. Well, I know half the amount of bash that I need to really support the InstaDMG project, so I'm twice as dangerous. I'm busting out of my shirt over here. So that doesn't mean that I'm all-knowing, the I am not a lawyer, chestnut that some people use. I am not Zach Smith. I am not Charles Edge. I am not Ed Marzak. I am not Nate Walk. I am not Mike Boylan. I am not Gary Larizza. But I will be very appreciative when I get questions about my pronouncements from the more rookie personnel in the room, because I'm available. And I would even more welcome corrections. Hey, I tested what you said, and that isn't exactly as it was. It shouldn't actually be necessary that you did that. We should optimize that. I would love to geek out with you guys about that. Well, your guru is on another mountain, but I'm here. I'm available. Thank you kindly for your attention. I'm taking forever to get through these, aren't I? Anyway, well, what's the ultimate virtue of SysAdmins? Laziness, right? So the maximum energy use is the 0 that we'll start from. When you have to use too much energy, that's where we'll start from. So, yeah. So obey the progress bar and fear its inevitable completion. Ooh. So this is obey. This is the little collabo. The star has obey in it. So, sorry. We spend plenty of time clicking buttons labeled continue, and next, waiting for one of them to hopefully say finish. No whammies, no whammies, no whammies, whammies, whammies. We hope we get all the way through these progress bars, and yeah, we might have seen enough of them at this point. And you may have heard the ire pointed at Adobe for how they have arranged to have their applications installed, and with good reason. They don't know how, it seems, to make a good package. They just can't make a good package. There's something missing in their sauce. And the installation and deployment experience of Adobe products can kind of be hit or miss, even with many recent improvements they've made. If you analyze the generic installation process, it should all be conceptually very simple, just 2 steps. Okay? How about you do some checks about the system it is being installed on, and fail verbosely if appropriate. How about you tell me why you couldn't install, not the fact that there's color profiles that are there by default on the system, and therefore, even though, anyway. So anyway, then just put the files and folders on disk with the proper ownership and permissions, and have everything as self-contained as possible. So, for example, Java or some other dependencies don't turn into a domino effect to fail. You pardon me that I am talking a little quickly, but trying to keep everybody going after lunch. Thank you kindly for staying with me. The only packaging session this year is at least on the great, although command line tool and text-based tool called the Luggage, but you couldn't ask for a better intro into how most packaging tools operate, and plain text files can be friendlier than a human-driven interface like a GUI. You can't back up or replicate my GUI interaction as well as a computer can when fed the appropriate instructions. Now, Lion did seemingly get a bit more strict and changed the permissions on certain folders. So if you were creating payload-free packages in the past without, leveraging launch daemons, or even more preferably, launch agents, if you need stuff specifically into users' folders, you probably got the hint when they stopped working. At least with Lion, there was certain more things that were strict on the system when you were trying to get them going. And so launch agents, launch daemons, when we're talking about packages, we're going to try to do better than we did yesterday practices, not necessarily best practices, because we could all use to be a little more humble. On the shoulders of giants, etc. Just to say here, yet another vanity URL. Sorry about that, but this is a great article about all of the common things that we cut ourselves on regarding having to repackage vendors' distributions that they've handed out to us. The only other thing I'm going to touch on here is about imaging or patch management solutions. They all start with the same foundation packages, not only the ones handed to you, or it may feel that they're forced on you in the service of your customers, but the ones you make yourself to accomplish a particular goal. I refer to packages as the lingua franca, or common language in which management solutions or maintenance practices use to affect the desired changes on our systems. Well, with packages as somewhat of a Trojan horse sneaking changes onto our systems, there's another secret weapon, I guess you could call it that. And this is one of the reasons I make an outline. I wanted to present you with a TLACS, a three-letter acronym cheat sheet. Everyone may already understand that when I say GUI, that's short for Graphical User Interface. Well, I was just at MacTech Magazine's boot camp in New York and in-depth conferences. One of the speakers, Max Buxton, found it worthwhile to explain that an SPF record, I call it a spoof record for DNS, for anti-spam, stuff like that, that has nothing to do with suntan lotion. I just want to make a quick point here. Knowing what acronyms are is like remembering historical dates, in my opinion. The broad strokes will do us just fine. Like, where did Napoleon get stopped? Okay, that's good to know. Sorry, I'm not in education. I might actually want to push that a little more, but still. That's why we have calculators. That's why pencils have erasers, Homer. So we'll keep rolling with the three-letter acronyms. Target disk mode. This is still pretty basic for folks. I'm sorry. Thank you kindly for your patience as we get through all of this. Where am I? I did even mention this last year, but a semi-obvious update to TDM that appeared not too long before Lion. Thunderbolt as a target disk mode option is now available, and bus-powered and bootable. So not having native iSCSI drivers and USB 3 or eSATA ports, yeah, those are still a bummer. But while Gigabit Ethernet can restore a small-ish 5 gigabyte image in about 3 minutes, that's pretty darn good. Thunderbolt can restore that same image in about a minute. It's the I/O of the source and the destination that are the actual, funnel point at that. All right. Bottleneck, thank you, at that there point in time. But folks may have found it more time effective at a certain point in time, what we're talking about this morning, to manually sneaker net, when your sneakers are the network. Sorry. FireWire drives around back in the day when we had 10100 networks and hubs. But this Thunderbolt option should actually present a good tool in our kit for us when we're testing an image. Very easy to just quickly, rapidly get the image on a machine and test it. Not necessarily for actual deployment when things are $50 a pop. And the cables are $50 a piece. Zooming out from packages, which we discussed earlier, and directly connecting cables, I'd like to remind y'all this manual interaction is exactly what we're trying to get away from. So let's jump to something you may have come across if we look at Apple's guidance for imaging, and that's another acronym, SIU, which is part of Apple's server tools. Now, system image utility, right? SIU from this point on. It is not the most obvious ingredient in, quote, server tools, which is further made confusing by the fact it's given different parts of imaging roles. Originally, you used it for one of two things it could do. You could prepare a almost diskless boot environment for computers, which would essentially turn the ones that were booted from that image into dumb terminals or thin clients called netboot, or you could prepare a service image that you could use for certain types of interaction with machines. Or you could, before Snow Leopard, the only other thing you could do was virtualize the installer disk. So you could run a GUI install of an OS installer manually over the network, called net install. With Snow Leopard, Apple announced Net Restore, and that name stands out in many sysadmins' ears because it was the name of a free product by Mike Bombick that also was considered a system imaging utility. And if you've been in the game long enough, you'd recall there was a Net Restore helper to prepare the image, and just Net Restore could be used to blast an image onto a volume. In certain very popular retail stores, they used, where am I? They used to make a netboot image with Bombick's Net Restore installed inside of it as a precursor to tools like Deploy Studio. As it was, as the British DJ says, massive in its day. But speaking of Mike Bombick, he's more well known these days for an even simpler tool he's been supporting for over 10 years, Carbon Copy Cloner. I'd like to draw a couple parallels to that tool since many of you may be familiar with it. Again, with the three-letter acronyms. In addition to CCC for Carbon Copy Cloner, there's a binary called Apple Software Restore, or ASR. I'm only going to get sidetracked briefly regarding command line tools, as I did go over them in last year's conference. But to continue down this line of thinking, I'm going to again give you my definition of the common terms. Terminal. It's the program and application utilities that gives us a shell or a command prompt. A binary is what I call a program or an application that is run at the command line after the $sign you see. And when I talk about running a command, I'm referring to typing a binary's name into terminal and optionally adding more information based on what you're trying to do. So to take it back, CCC primarily uses its own custom build of rsync, but when working with disk images or on an unbooted volume, it can also use ASR. And that is the same engine as Apple's system image utilities net restore function, which you can utilize to lay bits on disk. And again, I went over this last year, but instead of checking each file out and confirming it got to the destination like a regular copy, ASR, when it's in restore mode, can stream the blocks of data. It did get an update in Lion that is worth taking notice when it comes to a particular type of restoration of an image, the recovery partition, because it can then hide it. That is when you see the hiding of the partition, if you look at that exact process. The important part is CCC and disk utility can leverage the ASR binary, and you can not only use ASR when pouring the contents of a disk image or volume with its bucket obits out, but it also assists when optimizing a disk image to be poured out later when you're pouring one out for your homies. Now to contrast what InstaDMG is and does with SIU, I'm blowing up Justin's spot on this one, but specifically SIU only has similar features to InstaDMG when we're talking about its net restore preparation step. And this region of pain that's referred to in a podcast that I like with John Siracusa. You may know him from Ars Technica. He has a podcast where he talks about that specifically. The region of pain is what we refer to that earlier period of 0.0, 0.1, 0.2 in an OS. Doesn't matter if it's server or client, really, when things are still a little bit rough, a little bit shaky, and certain issues are being rapidly addressed. But I digress. As a brief review for those of you that are still unclear, InstaDMG is a pretty powerful script that can you can run in terminal to programmatically create an image. You can consider it similar for the Windows familiar people in here with slipstreaming and install process. But the programmatic part of InstaDMG, that's distinction number one. SIU's NetRestore is a GUI app, and it's pretty unoptimized for how sysadmins are used to being able to automate things with a little bit more transparency, to check on the imaging creation process as it runs. Yes, you can save a workflow. They're very automator-based in SIU. Sure. It seems a bit heavy when I've used it, but it's totally a parallel workflow to some extent. It's not going to take third-party software into account. It's not going to take poorly written installers into account. Just talking about the other big thing that's missing from SIU, even though its logging can be turned up to sort of be a parallel to what InstaDMG gives you very clearly right off the bat, in my opinion. SIU needs to do a full install every time, whereas InstaDMG caches the install of just the base installer disk, and therefore you take all of that time back, that 25 minutes the first time. You can just use that cache file, and I've blown that cache file out to all of your lab workstations. It's in the user's shared folder, and I'll have you move them into place when we get into the lab. But that becomes a very portable, a very easy to, you don't need a hard, like heavy install to get InstaDMG going. You don't need these server tools, the 200 meg download. You can do the 3 meg SVN checkout. We'll go over all these terms, but the point is that InstaDMG still, as little as I am maintaining it, it still has optimizations above what SIU can deliver. And for Lion, InstaDMG needed its Python plumbing slightly rearranged, but all in all, it performs the same task, minus certain other tricks that Apple was not kind enough to let us continue when there's certain security being applied to the installer process. Poorly written installers can go ahead and affect the image, the system that you're booted from when you're creating the InstaDMG image, but people have been working around that or just punting and just repackaging, doing things afterwards with their package management system, their patch management, different tools that they have there. In the second period here, we'll be discussing other line-specific concerns, or we may get to it before the break. And we'll go through actually using InstaDMG in that repeatable and automatable way. So that brings us through most of the major practical concepts of Lion imaging, having touched on packages, target disk mode, and Thunderbolt, which may be useful when you're testing an image, CCC and the restoration engine or binary / tool ASR, and the image preparation tools SIU, and still arguably the best tool for the job, InstaDMG. If you're into that stuff. Wow, I have transitions. Maybe I should use them. Anyway, so I've talked a lot. It was after lunch. I know that we're a little low energy. I just want everybody to let their brains seep out of their ears. Okay, this is how you rack a Mac Pro. Okay. I did that by hand, by the way. Let's actually just step away for a second. Yeah, can you hear me? Speed it up, for real? Okay. I go through from the very basics because I do want everybody on board with me. And really, that's all the feedback. Y'all ain't using that all that much. What's up? Sorry? I'm cheap, that's why. Let me clear that out. The hell? Thank you. You see, if only there was an admin in here who knew what they were doing. You know you want to. Hey, look at that. Okay, rock and roll. Yeah, so you can use that short URL now, the polev.com/outroute, and we can talk about that. We can talk about fun and excitement. Work with me. Work with me. Hello. Not right now, I'm washing my hair. Okay. So we went through less specifics about InstaDMG, but there was a whole presentation on that last year. The mechanics haven't changed underneath the covers, really, because I haven't changed them. You can go back to that on iTunes U, and you'll see exactly in painstaking detail how I presented on it last year. Now, MCX, or Managed Preferences. Last year, I got up here to present on Managed Client for OS X, again with the 3-letter acronyms. Since we love us them, I said Managed Preferences, as they are more recently referred to in places like the book, Enterprise Mac Managed Preferences, are like group policy objects in Active Directory. They could also be called property lists in particular when you look at the file format, orplists. Now I know there's a lot of definitions of terms. Again, this is all on the worksheet, on the outline. And this is the book that I actually based last year's talk on. We explained basically there are 2 ways to deploy managed preferences. Either from a central directory service or nested on each workstation using a concept called LocalMCX. And I even had a packaged demo on my GitHub. It's still there, but that was very specific to 10.6. Lion came in and disrupted a few things, and I rejiggered some things, made it a little more modular for Lion. And we'll be seeing exactly what that is in the lab section afterwards. I specifically made those packages for use with InstaDMG because that's what I'm all about. But then, in 2008, I'm turning back the clock for a second. The file format for management appeared to tackle iOS devices. I refer to it as the .mobile config files. It's just another XML file, just likeplists, and it treats each device that you apply that management to like an appliance that you want to have these on-off changes. It's very binary, on-off, 0, 1. These iOS devices are not multi-user systems and have a consumer-driven yet somewhat inflexible philosophy, mobile config files. Well, while we took this detour through history about iOS management on a seemingly unrelated platform, is that Apple brought it home to us in Lion Server by extending that style of management to Macs with Profile Manager. And we'll touch on how this may be considered a useful thing for your environment in the second session. I just wanted to clear the air. There's no elephant in the room. Profiles do not invalidate nor truly replace LocalMCX. There's a new functionality present in profiles when you're doing network management, when you're sending out 802.1x profiles in particular. It was a bear to script in the past. It is much easier with profiles. If you only use it for that, mazel tov. Workgroup Manager still does work just fine to provide a GUI for managed preference changes. But enough about that. We just want to make sure we're all on the same page regarding managed prefs. And I'm sorry, if I'm not going fast enough, I'm taking a big detour into LocalMCX right now because I really want people to use it. We will have very InstaDMG specific stuff coming in the lab, but just to get into the nitty-gritty of LocalMCX, here we go. Managed preferences. What it be? What it look like? The way I start to break this down is into 2 sets, each with a gang of 4. The adverbs and the nouns. Now, I didn't learn too good in school, so I only easily remember what nouns are when it comes to the definition. And I don't expect people to love the parallels with grammatical terms, but it's just an easy way to separate them into grouping. So let's be good, lazy sysadmins, and start with the easier one first. A noun is a person, place, or thing, right? For managed preferences, you can have a setting applied at these different levels. There's a hierarchy implicit. The user level, or a person, is at the top of the period. It's the most specific. Persons, or group of users, is less specific, but it's often good to abstract away individual users and think in organizational terms. A computer can be referred to as a place, I guess, and it's considered a lower priority. And finally, a thing like a computer group is the highest abstraction. So that gave you the breakdown of what you can manage, where you're applying this to, these different nouns, and the fact that if the same preference is managed at different levels, with these nouns, you can, thinking about it in the terms of person, place, or thing, that even kind of implies what the order is. The most important is first, the individual. And then you zoom all the way out to computer group. Then we have the adverbs, which imply the frequency of the verb being managed. The verb managing, really, I looked it up. These are actually adverbs. Never, once, often, and always. And it's funny, I kept on making the typo abverbs. It's like the gang of four, like a four-pack down here. Y'all are almost still awake after lunch. What's up? I talk pretty loud too, but anyway, it's okay. Y'all, you may not be interested in this particular part as much. It's okay. And now, these are the words are when people talk about the way in which the management is applied at one of these levels. The simplest example is often used that when you want to manage the doc, that's how you're applying a manage preference when you want to apply management to that. Never will not apply any management to that doc. Like the En Vogue song goes, never going to get it, never going to get it, never going to get it, never going to get it. No, 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 no. Just if you set it for never, which is the default, no management will be applied. I'll be here all week, folks. Tip your waiters. The once adverb is the friendliest. You're setting helpful defaults for your customers that they can change after it's been applied. Now there's a gotcha here, which makes explaining these adverbs worthwhile, I think. And that is that you may want to make sure you don't make a change to a once setting after it's been deployed, since people may have chosen to override it after that fact, after that point, to alter it. You changing it as an admin will reapply the management, which goes against the point of making it a once-only change in the first place. Well, just you may want future users to have that doc setting applied just as the default so they can change it afterwards. But if you're managing a group that already has that setting applied, all existing users would get that management reapplied as well, moving on. Okay. So the often management, I went too fast. Often management is not exposed in the regular workgroup manager GUI, and it is meant to cause settings to be reapplied upon subsequent logins. So customers can move around or add or remove items to the doc during that login session, and it will self-heal or set that preference back to what the admin had specified. I believe it occurs on logout. Often will actually need to be used in special cases when you're trying to use management on third-party applications. We'll get to that later. And then the last adverb is always. It is like Jean-Paul Sartre, once applied, there is no exit. And as they used to say about IBM, now Lenovo laptops, you can have any color you want as long as it's black. So always, no choice. The customers have no way to alter what has been set in their doc. So I hope you've picked up on the order of these adverbs from totally hands-off to friendly defaults, all the way up to the quote-unquote command and control, draconian management methods that I hope almost none of us should actually need. The default save settings in Office, maybe we want to enforce that so that we stop people from shooting themselves in the foot. Well, after I had said in the beginning, it might be beyond the scope of this discussion. However, I'm not sure if frequency is the best term for describing this particular half of the adverbs. So I'm open to suggestions for a clearer term, like frequency of how it's applied is a little meta. So I'm hoping it's good enough. Persistence. Consistency. So those were the basic concepts that make up the managed prefs. And to continue the review, let's talk about the placement of the actual files in play. As is often said about systems that are based on Unix, everything really is represented by files. And MCX is no different. Workgroup Manager gives you an interface and asks you what noun you want to manage first and foremost. And those nouns, what are those 4 nouns? Users, groups, computers. Yay, after lunch, what's up? And then the frequency, the adverbs. The adverbs, the 4 adverbs. Rock and roll. Rock and roll, thank you kindly. Yay, the 4 abs, you guys remember that. Now, for as to what the applied preferences look like, we take our building blocks of our nouns and adverbs, and we can hunt them down in our systems. The XML files that represent the nouns live in one of 3 places, either a cached location pulled down from a central directory service, or the local default node. Node is represented by a folder in the file system, Unix, which everyone will have on their systems with a stock vanilla configuration direct from Apple. Or we can create a custom node. Just for MCX. In almost all of these cases, the nouns will be in there, filed into subfolders by type. And then just a quick diversion. We're missing the only Launch D specific presentation at the conference right now. But to touch on that briefly, for those that aren't familiar, it's like Windows scheduled tasks or cron in the Unix world. I'd like to point out the difference between launch daemons and launch agents. Really, I'm going to come back to why this is relevant in just a second. Just launch D is the system service or framework that can interact with those scheduled tasks, which is represented on the system as XML. That's where you're defining a particular task created by us as sysadmins, or applications can seed these files, these jobs that they want run, or the OS itself. And since launch agents can run in the user context, launch daemons run as root, you don't have to use other particularly heavy-handed methods to affect changes for all of the users on a system, like monkeying around with the system's user template. Your mileage may vary, but someone here from my LocalMCX talk last year reported getting burned on a deployment by having Apple, revert back some changes they had made to the user template. So yeah, that's kind of Apple's right as far as I'm concerned. So why did I talk about launch agents, launch daemons, the user context, stuff like that? We're talking about system-wide stuff, but we're talking about the management of preferences, right? Well, here we go into Plistapalooza. When you set the frequency of management to either once or often, the managed preference being applied drops the preference in question into the tilde, or user's library preferences folder. That means you can apply management to a computer once or often, and the management will end up in the user's home folder. And not only that, but many third-party apps which store their preferences in that folder can be managed via MCX, not just Apple-specific stuff. Always management ensures that you're doing stuff system-wide, but it is dropping files in the root library managed preferences folder. And it might take some trial and error with these once and always preferences that you want applied for each user. But for example, Microsoft Office save formats, that's in those preferences are stored, not system-wide. You're managing it per user. And just by saying that you're going to affect that often, you can guarantee some amount of predictability across the user accounts that are logging into a system. And just to let you know, 2008 Office was very straightforward to apply management to. 2011, I used the exact same plist files, changed one key, everything was hunky-dory. Greg Neagle is somebody that I didn't mention in my guru section. Someone in IRC should have already ratted me out. And he has been very illustrative to everybody with blog posts on exactly how LocalMCX works and specifically managing Office 2008 save formats, 2011 save formats. When I moved to Lion, it was a no-brainer to continue using LocalMCX. And when it comes to exactly what we're talking about in the way of projects to deploy these, okay? We've talked about where they are in the system. We've talked about like how they kind of work, why we apply them in a certain way, why we apply the frequency to the nouns in a certain way. Well, we can go to GitHub, and we will later. And you'll see my projects specifically regarding not only the 10.6 way of doing that all from scratch with the user in that new node for management, but also like making it more modular and going forward with Lion. Now, the two, I totally forget why I put the slide in. I just really like the GIF, I guess. Am I getting dizzy? I'm sorry about that. So like, fork me on GitHub. This is the GitHub Octocat. So this is where I've stored those packages. We'll go there later. That didn't work very well, did it? How are we doing on time? I have no idea how we're doing on time. 2:20. But how much longer in this session? 2:45. Well then, I don't have to cut it short here. Wow, it's going to be a really long lab. I hope that you guys are going to be able to stick through, because I have now officially gotten through both my updates for Lion, kind of, to InstaDMG, and a refresher on LocalMCX, and the fact that, yes, it still works. I'm just going to take a glass of water here, and then I'm going to do some ventriloquism. Where do never prefs get stored? Within Vo's career. Slightly cleaner way to rack mount full-size Macs. Oh, OS 10, OS X. Yes, thanks, guys. Really appreciate that. Folks wanting to let me know exactly what's going on. Where are we in the world? Let's see if this works. Huh. No, that didn't work. Yeah, my time's up. So
the answer there is the double.
Someone asked where the IRC channel is.
Oh, hash, or pound for those on this side of the puddle. OSX dash or hyphen server is the OS 10 server IRC that Rusty had been most famous in popularizing on the Mac Enterprise list not so long ago. So IRC, you can use a client like Colloquy, you can use LimeChat, and it's a place where I hang out way too often to actually get any work done. And I chat with people or ask Greg Nagel questions and make him very upset, make him very consternated. So definitely, do as I do, not as I say. Let's put it out on the Twitter or something. Don Freenode, yes, as the host for that IRC channel. So why am I using the Jeopardy theme? It is frequently asked questions. So I will be looking for answers in the form of a question, okay? Are we ready? We're going to start at 200, don't worry. We're going to start at 200. It's just a static volume. You don't need patches, customizations in it. And because your image restore tool, like Deploy Studio, takes care of it. Answers in the form of a question. Anybody? Anybody? The recovery partition. Ding, 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 ding. Okay, so like this was actually supposed to be a game. Who wants like a kilowatt thing that tells you the power out of the wall, how much energy you're using? Really, I'm giving this away. Anybody who wants? Okay, so these two, I'm hoping that you guys can answer the next question. Okay, it's really what I wanted to say is InstaDMG does not handle the recovery partition. It does not try to. Now, I'm not 100% certain. You guys are here for this part. That's awesome. I believe that ASR is what has the logic in it that then hides that partition. If InstaDMG created it, you would still need to blast it out and put it down. The most critical reason InstaDMG does nothing with the recovery partition is the fact that you use it for File Vault 2. I don't want to help people customize something that you're then going to unencrypt your drive with. No warranty granted or implied? Yeah, this is open source. You can wreck yourself. It's fine. So these two gentlemen are who I'm focusing on. You who came in first today to be here for this lab, and Julio, okay? So the topic is food and drink. And for 200, you can't beat this soup, which is made from beets. First to go in.
Borscht.
See, he stole your kilowatt, dude. You gotta get on that.
I'm sorry, I didn't do it in the form of a.
You did not.
What is borscht?
What is
They
borscht?
usually give you one, don't they?
I am actually going to get back on topic, don't worry. Okay, so this is LocalMCX for 400. It can only deliver always manage prefs and affects the entire plist, even unset options. What is a profile? A profile manager. Both are acceptable answers. That's 400 for both of you. What are the limitations of profiles in their current implementation? Now, what does the even unset options part refer to? Remember, if we're applying something never, right? So how many people are semi-familiar with Workgroup Manager's interface? The fact that there's different tabs, and each tab has a never, often, or once, or always, right? So an unset option, when you say that you don't want to actually apply a setting, that you want to apply it never on one tab, you don't want any of the changes in there to affect your system, well, Profile Manager is pretty helpful. You know how you don't have to click Save in IPCU or those other very iOS type interfaces? It's going to apply all of the settings whether or not you customize anything. It's very helpful. It is going to just wipe everything else about the plist it's managing and replace it with whatever was there by default plus. It's kind of weird. Back up early, back up often. Just like voting in Chicago. US cities now. For 600, you had to send the earliest Kodaks back to the city to have the film inside developed. Hey, but Jeremy's not here. Everyone's a winner. Okay. Very New York crowd. What state are we in? Okay. So for 800, it can create server OS images. You can build server images on client, and vice versa. What's the new features? It's a damaging lion. We used to be very not like pricks. We used to be very particular about the fact that please build on the same OS that you're booted from the same OS that you're trying to build. We are still that way because it's the easiest way to kind of limit the scope of things, limit the things that could go wrong, because the installer binary changes a good amount between OSs. You want to have InstaDMG running to create installs on the version that you're trying to install into. But the server versus client limitation has gone away. And now, servers are minis. You're not thinking this is the most critical service that's serving the internets or anything like that. It's not the next box that the first web server was on. And moving on, if I still have battery. The entire presentation, huh?
The answer there is the double.
I'm sorry, I found that soundboard. I got to do it. So you should use whichever tools you're comfortable with. They're great tastes, which taste great together. Which tool should I use? I'm going to answer this one. Sorry, guys. Which tool should I use? Should I use InstaDMG instead of Monkey or Thin Imaging or Deploy Studio's package functionality? Should I use LocalMCX instead of centralized managed preferences from a directory service? Remember, this is better than we did yesterday practices. Really, I got it looping. This is pretty awesome. I like Keynote. Keynote's awesome. Okay, that's enough of that. Okay, we can go into the lab now because I'm ridiculously early and because it takes about 37 minutes to build an image. So there are only 30 workstations that have the Cat6 cables. Those have an internet connection and the whole nine. InstaDMG, I don't actually have on this slide where the heck the outline is. Help your neighbor if you know what that URL is. Where am I in the world? I am definitely going to take a break in between. When am I taking a break? In 3 minutes or in 17 minutes? 45? Oh, okay. So this is where the outline is, and this is the lab, okay? So let's go ahead and get that first, and then we'll all be on the same page. So all of the 30 laptops that are on the network, and we have a good amount of tools on these laptops prepped for you. We have cache files in the shared folder again, but I'm going to walk everybody through all these steps. If we can get to the point where we actually click go on an image, then we can walk out for 15 minutes, and the robot will create an image for us. It will be great. It will be good times. So everybody has the outline. Maybe please download it. I would like you to copy and paste from it. So please click the download button from Dropbox so that it actually goes onto your workstation and it's easier to copy paste out of from preview. Okay? Sorry, champ. I ate chocolate-covered squirrel. What the hell is that? I have no pop culture references for this. Yeah, food coma for rolls. For rolls. I know what you mean. So where the heck were we? We were in our lab. We were going to start our lab because we're such advanced students that we got there so early. Okay. Everybody has the outline. We're going to open up terminal. It is an application/utilities. The InstaDMG PDF. Well, yeah, I can't ask you to SVN checkout from the InstaDMG PDF if you don't have it. Where am I in the world? What am I thinking? What was I thinking? Who is this guy? Okay, so, so SVN checkout. You can go ahead and copy paste this, please, as soon as terminal opens, and you will be doing an SVN checkout. I don't expect everybody to understand every flag that I'm having you copy and paste in. This is not cargo cult adminning. This is not just the aspects of what real adminning is. Don't worry about it. Password? Password to your workstation's Mac is the username, Mac is the password.
Do we need to sudo this SVN checkout?
You do not need to sudo this SVN checkout. You're allowed to write to your own home folder. And SVN doesn't require you to be an admin. Thank you for following along. Yay! Yay! After lunch, what's up? I'm really glad that you guys are awake, hanging with me. Okay, so where were we? We were over here. The idea behind getting that SVN checkout is that you will get a version of create user with the SVN checkout. What is create user for? It is for putting a user into your InstaDMG image so that when you restore it, there's already your user on the system. You can already log in. A further package than this that we'll customize later turns off the setup assistant, and I'll show you where that is in a semi-live demo. But for create user, stay in utilities, right? We haven't moved anywhere. We just ran one command to do a checkout of InstaDMG, the entire InstaDMG project. Git is installed on the system. Don't worry about what that means. Git clone this URL, and you will be doing the same thing as an SVN checkout, but with the Git source control management program. Anyway, system. So this is all one line. Please be careful with multiple lines when we get here. This entire section needs to be on one line, but we're not there yet. I would like you guys to go ahead and open the application that we checked out when in git clone, right? There's an app in it. You have to mount the DMG first, okay? Please. Sorry about that. First, you're git cloning to check out from the source control. Then you mount the DMG that ends up inside that folder. So in your Finder, inside of your home folder, will be a new folder called lion create user GUI.git. See, I'm trying to be friendly. I'm trying to help us have a little GUI behind how we create a user for Lion. So season to taste, right? When we're running the app, eventually we'll do that checksum. But when we're seasoning to taste, first it's going to ask you for the user's real name. Please just use like testadmin. The only thing that's actually important, the short username testadmin. This is actually important. This is the second step of that GUI, that app that we're running to create a user. One of the things that's important, okay? Testadmin, we want that to be all lowercase. Do we want it to be hidden? No. No, we probably don't want it to be hidden. Yeah, I skipped a step before this, right? No, we probably don't want to be hidden. The defaults of like optional, anytime it says optional, you're good with what it gives you there by default. But no, we probably don't want it to be hidden. That would be way more secure than we possibly need. For the password, you might as well just make it test to make your lives easier. You could. This is just a test. This is only a test. Beep, beep, beep. Does everybody have the app open and are going through the customization steps? Maybe? Some? Most? Yes? No? The app that we checked out from the create line user GUI?
This one? Create line user?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
That's the stuff. That's the pudding. Yes, we'd like it to be a local admin. That's a good default. Oh, yeah, you do. Yes, the default is no. Sorry about that. I missed that screenshot. Yes? No? What's up? Where are we at? Okay, so now we go back to the Finder.
Okay.
And in your home folder, which they don't give you by default, so go click on pictures. It's up arrow to go back. And now there's the create line user GUI. Inside of there is a DMG. Double click that. You will mount it, and then you can run that app. Yes, sir? Oh, onion outline. So it's url.auru-b.com/onion and then uppercase O outline.
Should we make the admin or not?
So go ahead and make the admin if you're there, and you'll want to save where it goes to here. Just one more moment. So I'm going to go through all those steps again, but everybody's that's at this point, go ahead and save it to install Insta-up-to-date packages. That's why we did this checkout first. I needed to populate those directories. Right. We've mounted the DMG from the Finder. We're running the app. I will show that in just a couple more clicks. So first we started with the user's real name, testadmin. Then the short name is the only important part, only critically important part. If you want to screw yourself up by hiding it, that's fine. It'll still work. Testadmin, just one word, all lowercase, please. We want the testadmin to not be hidden. We do want it to be an admin. Why the heck not? Let's make the password something like test to make our lives easier, and this is where we save it. So in the root of the home folder is that InstaDMG that we checked out via SVN in the first step, then installer files, then Insta-up-to-date packages. Yes? No? Yes.
For unique ID?
That is optional, so go ahead and click next, please. That is optional. Click next, please. We don't need to specify a picture. We don't need to specify that path. We like the default. We're optional. We want it to be a local administrator. Why the heck not? And no, we don't want it to be hidden. Yeah, let's give it ARD. What the heck not? Why the heck not? That's powerful. Password. How about something like 4 characters? That one? Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it is. It's far. InstaDMG at the root of the home folder that you're logged into. Installer files. And then Insta up-to-date packages.
We've already pulled down InstaDMG. Is there a quick command that we can type to update it? I'm on 448, but
I'm sorry, update which?
so I don't have to pull down the whole repository again?
Of InstaDMG.
Yeah. Can I just do an SVN?
SVN update? Yeah, SVN space update. Should. It might bother you about conflicts, and you can say, you like theirs, or I like mine, or things like that. Everybody okay? Everybody okay? Everybody at this point? Maybe? Some people, no people? Talking amongst yourselves? We still have 7 minutes before the break. If we might just make it there. You guys are fast. I like GUIs. Okay. First boot. First boot is something that helps us so that we skip the setup assistant, but specifically we run through what the, when you get welcome to Mac OS X Lion. So you hear instructions in English, stuff like that. All of the questions it asks us about time zone, lots of stuff that actually Patrick Gallagher from Emory State University collaborated with me on. He was like, hey, you should go ahead and check your first boot scripting. I did that, and he was like, yeah, I'm not using any of that. I want this. And it helped me to collaborate with him, open source, with some of the options we can put into our first boot script. So again, we're back in terminal. We haven't really gone anyplace. We're still, see the tilde, we're still in our home folder. Again, we're going to git clone. This time we're going to do Unixorn, which is Joe from Oyala. Oyala's hiring, by the way, in California. They're great folks. Joe Block of the luggage. There are luggage examples. I'm a collaborator on that repo.
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
Did we just skip over the InstaDMG lines, or are we going to do those next?
We're going to do those next.
Okay.
I got 7 minutes. I'm going to get there. So, Text Wrangler is our friend. Why did I need to uncomment first boot post imaging shell? Oh. Why did I need to uncomment first boot post imaging? Oh, there's specific LocalMCX stuff in that script. Let's look at it. Let's do it together. Wow. So, in the world, here's the only stuff in there. What did I say? We're going to uncomment stuff only. That's all I said, didn't I? I'm so vague. I'm so vague. So with Text Wrangler, later go ahead and install some command line tools. No, this is not what we're customizing. Jesus Christmas. In first boot, right? We have the first boot post imaging script. We're going to look at this, right? And this stuff is mine, so it's already uncommented. Huh. Sorry. So this is the important part.
I'm sorry, but there's no way to see that back here. What's the...
Yeah. I'm gonna bump it. I'm gonna bump it. Bump! Bump! Hit me again! Okay, so... Sorry, this is the only important part. Let me actually, sorry, 2 seconds, 2 seconds, 2 seconds, 2 seconds. How about line numbers? That would help too. So line 60 on, sorry.
File you're editing. What file
We don't know what file you're looking at.
Firstboot.sh, firstboot post imaging.sh. Where did we get there to get here? So this is the first boot that's part of, okay, sorry. Luggage examples, first boot, and inside of that first boot folder is not makefile, but first boot post-imaging.sh. Can I see it on your system?
Yeah.
You guys are so great following along. Great. There's actually a quick key to do that. It's in here somewhere. I always just search help for uncomment. But that is the critical section in first boot. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I expected to have more time, right? No. Okay, so we're removing the sharps, the hash, the pound signs from the beginning of these lines. This is actually totally unnecessary for the purposes of what we're doing today, but it's how we will be able to customize stuff after we deploy it. We need an MCX admin in that same node, and this part of the first boot creates that user in that node. Creates that user in that folder. The only thing that's actually missing is the password. It's not actually star. You have to set a password in the command line, but again, way too complicated. I'm sorry, guys.
If mine's already commented out.
Yeah, then that's it. Was it? Okay, yeah. So you're good. So that's.
So do you want it commented out or do you not want it?
I would love it commented out from line 60 on.
Okay, it was commented out. It was already commented out.
Uncomment? Yeah, it said uncomment, didn't it?
It's commented by default.
All right. I'm sorry. Yeah, it'll be fine. Let's keep moving though, so that we can actually get going. I'm not kidding. It's actually going to be fine. It's actually going to be fine. I don't know why I did that exactly. Is that right? Because it's right. Anyway, so back in terminal, please. From the outline, you can copy paste this command that what we're doing here. We're going to cd, and that's where we're going to land in logexamples.firstboot. And I don't have make here, do I? Yeah, I do. Okay, then on the outline, really good outline. All right, is make pkg ls. Right? Where am I in the world? Hey. So you're going to automatically essentially be in your home directory in the terminal. Logexamples first boot. You need to get into this folder essentially. And then make package ls. And it asks you for a password, which is Mac. You're essentially being promoted to super user as part of running this command. Did that spit out lots of text? Yes. Yes. An angel gets its wings. What error? Make space.
Package maker's not found. It's because of what version?
Who? Yeah. So you need to symlink. So it's ln space -s.
Where's Xcode is the question.
No, it's not Xcode. It's actually make finding package maker. It's when make converts to finding package maker. So it's a ln space -s. And is package maker in the applications folder?
That's what I'm wondering.
Because I pushed it to all of these stations. If those two were offline for some reason, then I suck. Okay, so make package ls was the first step. Just you can put up arrow and then erase the last two letters, and it'll be just make pkg. Please go ahead and run that. Yes, no, yes, no? Oh, I skipped checksum, didn't I? Anyway. Copying and pasting these commands, the checksum commands, putting them on one line is the only semi-tricky part. Really? 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 What we just did by doing pkg ls, by doing make space pkg ls, is we used the luggage package building tool to take a directory structure and stick it into a package. And I did all of the busy work to setting up the directory structure that it would therefore, with the package, install with just the right permissions and ownership onto the system. So when I spoke much earlier about packaging being an important part of this, luggage is very straightforward because it's just text. It's written in old person scripting language, and I'm an old person myself. Please don't take any offense to that. It's just like it's a somewhat clunkier way because people have found optimizations with newer scripting languages. When you're writing in Make, things look a little funny. Anyway, so that has created packages in the same directory that you ran Make PKG in. Make package ls tells us that yes, we definitely got success, and it gives us a nice friendly layout of what is in that package, what users and permissions actually ended up after you spoke make talk to the system. Make talk is a little bit difficult to speak. Where am I in the world? Let me. So on the outline, there was an earlier command that ends in checksum. The first line ends in checksum.py. Please go ahead and make sure that those two lines are entered into the terminal in one line with just a space in between.
So we're entering the first checksum.py set of lines on the second.
Both, please.
Both with the spacing.
But there's checksum like
Right.
this one, or both?
Both, please.
So all 4 lines.
So it's like the first two are going to be in one line. You're going to stick them together with a space in between in terminal. And the second two,
Admin user line package, and then the one down below is config basics, LAdmin, blah, blah, blah.
yes, sir.
2 completely separate ones.
Yes, sir. And it is going to just spit some stuff back into the terminal, and that's going to be useful later. And we've probably run out of time, haven't we? We're over. How many people want to keep going for like 10 minutes? Yeah, you're okay? You gotta, Jed, it's okay. Bio break, the whole 9. So, both of those checksums are going to look something like, do I have any recent ones? Do I not have that anywhere? Where am I? So this is what we should have looked like at the end of a package ls. Then we ran a make package. When we do a checksum.py, it gives us a little 3-section line that it spits back at us, and the end of each of ththose lines is a SHA-1, is a hash of the package. And that does come in handy just a little later. Now we're going to move on and do another custom package, the last. This is the last step before we move on to actually creating an image with InstaDMG. From terminal, we're going to check out from my repo, LocalMCX 2012.git. And the outline will tell you to please cd space tilde first. That will take you back into the root of your home folder. That way, when you check out with Git, when you clone this project, it'll create a new folder at the root of the home folder. Okay, Git's pulling down LocalMCX 2012 for us.
Yep.
Rock and roll. Then we can use Text Wrangler to customize something inside of there. Let me show you exactly where it is that Text Wrangler will be opening. Blah, don't save. Open, where the heck am I? In docs, dev. This is LocalMCX 2012. In LocalMCX 2012, in computer groups, there's a login window message. Okay? We open that guy up. In computer groups, yep. How did I just quit? Computer groups, login window, message.plist. Line 61 is where it says managed by LocalMCX. You should go ahead and change that to whatever it is that you want. The way that you show line numbers in Text Wrangler. Really? Why did Text Wrangler quit on me? How about you skip? Where the heck am I? Not this. For the love of bejeebers. Yep. Then you can go back to the outline and make the package.
Change it to what?
Change it to whatever it is that you would like. Line 61? No uncommenting is required. Just in the middle of all that block of stuff, only replaced where it says managed by LocalMCX. So there's... Yep, this is not the right one. So that's first boot post imaging.
Change it to whatever we want.
Change it to whatever you want, but only in between where the text actually is. Please don't hit that ampersand or nothing. Where the heck was I? Why am I looking at my iTunes? This is like pathetic. Where were we? So, for the love of all that's holy. Hello, so computer groups, login window message, we're opening. And how did I turn on line numbers? I went to view text display, show line numbers. And it was line 61, managed by LocalMCX. Please only change in between the ampersand and the semicolon, okay? So like where it says managed by LocalMCX, that is where I would like you to put welcome to Darwin, or give me all your lunch money, or owned, or anything you would like. So this is a managed preference that we are modifying. It's an actual plist that we're modifying, and it's going to be applied at the computer group level. We've abstracted away from the system. It's semi-complicated. I go into it in last year's LocalMCX presentation, available on iTunes U at bookstores near you. So we've customized show text fields message .plist line 61. Then back in terminal, CDing to LocalMCX 2012. You can go ahead and copy paste that from the outline. Then you're making the package. I always do make package ls first, so that it lists out exactly that stuff made it into the package. That's a good thing. Then we're copying it to insta-update packages and running checksum.py on it. So the copy step has to happen before the checksum.py step. Where are we in the world? Yeah, so we've made the package. Go ahead and copy the package from that directory, LocalMCX 2012. Oh wait, no, I checksum it right there. Yeah, you can drag drop it into the window as well when you're checksumming stuff in the future. You can say, hey, checksum, drag drop into terminal, terminal fill the path for you. I do that plenty of times when I don't know how to escape spaces and stuff like that. Okay. Now we have everything we need. Everything's perfect, really. If you saw the package ls spit out a whole bunch of directories for you, and you have those packages in place, we are going to load them into InstaDMG. And this is going to be the hardest thing for me to demo, because it's just like a few things that we're going to need to have to move around here. Here's my InstaDMG folder, right? I want to make sure that the packages, sorry?
Bigger.
Bigger. Bigger. Make it happen. That installer files, insta-up-to-date packages. I have a system that actually has this on. I have the create user. It's actually going to see create-test admin. I have the first boot, which is actually configure basics, prep local admin, and this LocalMCX starter package. Those 3 packages need to be in there. So please go ahead and finder drag drop into the InstaDMG, installer files, Insta up-to-date packages folder. Okay? Maybe? Okay. I'm already moving on.
The 3 packages.
Go back.
The 3, right? So the configure basics prep local admin, the create test admin user, and the local MCX starter. Those 3 packages should be in there. Okay? That's in the first boot folder. I should have made things the same name, shouldn't I have? So, So those are packages you have, right? And a lot of them are on the system any old where. In the root of your home folder, this, well, did you run the make package for this one?
I think so.
So that was make package ls. You ran make package?
How did we end up with the problem now?
There we go. Now we have it. So that's one. Oh, yeah, duh. So that's there. That's it. That is it.
I don't think
Those 3.
I didn't know if I get the right part with the copying those 2 lines together over here. This one.
Yeah.
Putting them together. I wasn't sure what command to spit back.
It will just do some output. I'll show you exactly what that looks like. So,
We want config basics prep L admin, create test admin user, local MCX starter, all in one folder.
yes, sir. In that folder, the Insta up-to-date packages. So, then, let me actually see what the hell I'm doing. Ooh, that was not it. All right. Without a net. Wow, it's going to be a quiet second half of this class, isn't it? For the fuck Christ. Remind me not to cuss on mic. Okay. So the putting it all together part. This is what the end result wants to look like, okay? Let us go to yeah, I can't use a Thunderbolt drive when I have something plugged in, don't I? From InstaDMG, add-ons, Insta up-to-date, catalog files. Yes, very small. Yes, I'll zoom in just a second. Everything. We're going to select 10.7 underscore vanilla. So add-ons, Insta up-to-date, catalog files, 10.7 vanilla. So now we've got 10.7 vanilla. Okay? These lines should look familiar because when we ran checksum.py, it should have spit out 1 for each package. So now we need to go back into terminal, scroll up to where it said our checksum.py lines, and we had checksum.py space path to the package that we want a shadow hash, that we want a hash for. Go ahead and copy and paste those into here. Really. So you'll be copying and pasting exactly what you hashed. The only other step is to comment out the first of them, the OS 10 line update 10.7.3. We hashed 3 on the outline. The unfortunate part is that I didn't hash them directly to where they are in the InstaDMG packages folder, but I think it should still work. So this is, I'm going to totally break stuff for a second, but I'll be back in just one moment. Come on. Okay, so in here, when we look up at where we checksummed, where did you checksum? They're in there somewhere. You see, these were 2 lines instead of 1.
Oh, my bad.
No biggie. So now,
When you said that, sorry, I wasn't listening.
no biggie. It didn't exist because you moved it to, I can't stand the defaults.
It's actually in the Finder. It's in that open window.
Right. Oh, boy. So anyway. So we're going to do the drag drop version. Yep. Thank you for sticking with me. I'm sorry that we're going over like this. Oh, man. Yep. Unfortunately, it's very important to make sure that you have the, I did configure, create, and now I need local. And you're commenting out the 10.7.3 update. So that first line got commented out. We need to make sure there's a tab.
What's the command before you drag and drop that file?
It's the checksum, the one that ends in checksum.py. First one, second one, third one. That's that. That's saved. That's what we're going to be calling it, and we can customize the name or whatever. We are almost ready to run it after all of those steps are done. I'm going to come over once I just get this one right here started. So from the user's shared folder, there's caches. I want to replace the entire caches folder in InstaDMG with the caches from the shared folder. Because that has the caches in it. Yeah. Sorry, so the one step back was just finishing the catalog file. So those 3, oh, I'm sorry, I did that twice, didn't I? Thanks, guys. That was why did I do that twice, huh? So that was local, create, and you're supposed to have caches and you just shared. You guys didn't get the link. You guys didn't get that. So flash drives and enjoy and find a friend, call a friend, lifeline, poll the audience, and then the last one was, is it create? What is it? It's not create, it's config.
Who's got a key?
I got a key.
got a big enough flash drive? Here, I got another flash drive.
You're gonna have to need like at least like 5 gigs.
I got.
This is 4.38. This is a 32 gig flash.
Why don't you just open up the, like put it to the public and then turn on sharing?
Then we
You
can
got
replace
Ethernet
it.
here, don't you?
Do we?
Oh,
If
yeah.
you don't, it's probably gonna be faster than doing it for a flash drive.
Yay. It uses that as temp, as if it needs to download stuff. It just tells us.
So that one's not, I don't need to turn it on.
Okay. Where's my flash drive? Where's my flash drive? Anyway.
Basically, that whole chunk of output from the terminals.
Yep.
Because you know the admin login, so just skip them.
This is a vanilla catalog.
Into the 10.7 vanilla catalog. So the difference between the vanilla catalog before and after we touched it is we've added this pound before this line. And these 3 lines, they have a tab, LocalMCX, tab create test admin, tab configure basics. It's very important that there is a tab character between these. We don't have anything extra on that line. Nothing up my sleeve. Nothing up my sleeve. The order does not matter at all. Then, how close are we?
Very close.
Very close. Not so much. Thank you for letting that stay on the edge there.
I'm copying from terminal, so I can't see it.
Sorry. So this line, that's the config. Ooh. All right, you had that just fine. And then the same for create.
It's only one of the two because I'm copying something.
So that was config basics.
We got all sorts of ways to do it.
I got computers that have been many years, so it's very good. What helps?
Create.
Just go on very rapid computer.
Theory should work in any copy.
Create and config, create, and then local.
I can copy the base image cache folder, but not the up-to-date cache folder.
Yeah,
It's working though, right? Yes, we are. Much faster than flash.
Yes.
Are we close? Are we there?
What cache file am I copying?
And save this, and then we're going to run InstaDMG. And we'll have just enough time for it to finish before the end of the day.
Got a little off track because I had to fix luggage. But
Right, yeah.
Luggage worked now. I just pulled down this, and then I'm adding a fixed computer record.
Yeah, not fixed computer record inside of computer groups. You're fixing the local, the login window. Okay, the last step, really, the last step. You have, I didn't have it for you to copy paste, but inside of the InstaDMG folder is the guide. The third line in the guide, if it ever opens, because preview online is spectacular. Really, really it is. It's so spectacular.
You want us to do the process?
Is the process, right? I want you to do the process. Please change the 6 to 7 though, you know? Am I there? No, I'm not there. So that guide is in the root of the InstaDMG folder. It's actually a symlink, but you double click it, it will open. With a little bit of luck. No. Oh, no, this is not the disk arbitration framework. Thank you for jumping on the #1 bug of InstaDMG. Hey, everybody, for experience sake. No, we're going to go and grab the installer disk. That's actually kind of important. The installer disk, where is it now? Well, if we have install Mac OS X Lion, and this is yesterday 11/21, maybe it is actually the right one. There's a shared support folder. So how did I get there? How did I get it? Back up, back up. Wait, 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 whoa, 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 whoa. Wait, wait. That's the most annoying thing to hear. Okay, so in your applications folder, install Mac OS X Lion. I'm right-clicking. I'm showing the package contents. Okay? Contents. Shared support. OS install.meta package is not the right one. He didn't put install esd.dmg on my images.
Never do a demo. Never.
All right, so everyone start polling it from these guys.
Okay, so I have remote desktop. I'll push it all to your InstaDMG folders. Killing me, slaughtering me, slaughtering me, ending me. After it said, hey, I'm going to do these packages, it would say, oh, okay, the installer disk is right here, and it's 10.7.3. We're off to the races. That's what it would say. So that's the first page of the guide.
Found it. It's in user shared InstaDMG installer files base OS.
It is in there?
That's where it is.
Oh.
Not everyone has that. Just pointing that out.
Oh, there's only 2 machines that don't. Wow, I gave up way too early. I'm sorry, it's there.
We only have
So in the shared folder, we copied the entire caches folder, right? Where was it? Oh, shared, base OS. Ah, hey, look at that. So that's where it would have been. I am such a dork. Okay, so here we are in shared, and wait, where base?
Yeah, see, not everyone has it.
No. No.
Well, we have it.
I put it on yours.
Share it to the internet.
Oh, for the love of bejeebers.
Wow, this function is slow.
I'm sorry. I was close, but no cigar.
Yeah, I don't know why.
The that's 10.6. It is not necessary in 10.7 because it's distributed already in a processable format. We just need the install esd.dmg. Oh, for process, you don't need this. You don't need that middle step.
But the second one, we can just run changing this to
7. 7. Yes, sir.
And it'll just run.
And it will just run if the installer disk is actually in place.
That's what we're going to
I have it on here, but this is my personal laptop.
So
On the network. Yeah, I don't understand why it's not getting
let's take a break. I am copying it right now. It's already 25% done copying it into the shared folder on all the workstations. I like going down in a flaming ball of wreckage. On the actual lab blow by blow, the last commands are not there.
Oh, okay, so then it's not at that point.
This guy. Stack Overflow stickers. He's like, come find me. I'm like, where are you?
He's gonna be down in,
You don't need that anymore.
Okay.
That was when you had physical install disks.
Okay, so the command then, so that we can point it to the install DMG.
You don't need to point to install DMG, you need the install DMG period, which I am pushing, and it's about 70% done right now. And then that last command will be 10.7 vanilla process.
Oh yeah, he replied to the tweet.
I was afraid I missed your part of it.
Okay, so that's finished. That's finished. It's right there.
So where should it be?
So it'll be in the shared folder right there.
But they'll still need to do the
So where it needs, you do not need to import. All you need to do is drag drop as of 10.7. Install ESD is fine. You don't need to run any type of processing on that disk. So it goes into base OS. It really does.
So you need a copy. Yep. So go back to InstaDMG. Or sorry, no, installer files.
Installer files, base OS. I've moved it to the shared folder now. It should be right there. It's install.esd.dmg. Just need to copy it to your home folder, InstaDMG, installer files, base OS.
So really, you don't need import disk with 10.7?
You don't need import disk as of 10.7.
That's awesome. I did not know that.
Well, I also fixed the code so that the name install.esd.dmg
Is valid.
is valid.
Groovy. So you wanted us to copy hash files too?
So just putting the hash into the catalog file so it knows of the 3 packages we're going to install. The hash is an important part of it, so if you change it, it knows which one you wanted to actually use.
Okay,
You can use the same name.
that part, and then save that file and then close it.
Save that file and close it. Sorry? The path, it knows where to look, so you don't need, in the middle section, right? You don't need path to wherever the package is. It can be a URL over the network. It can be, just like that's how it works with Apple updates. But it always checks locally first, and it'll say, hey, I found it based on my guest name of my guest path of where it is. And I'm A-OK.
So we can put 2 tabs in the middle and not have to specify a path, we just put the name.
All 3 fields, I don't think it's going to work. All 3 fields should be necessary, yeah. Like, it needs to, you have a friendly name as the first part. Yeah, it can be blah, it can be whatever. Then it needs to know the name of the package, and if you want to supply it with either a URL or a full path, then it needs the SHA-1 of said item. Path is,
Well, unless it's defined locally.
It might be necessary.
the tool will tell you, as a matter of fact. It'll say, hey, you're SHA-1ing something, you're checksumming something that's in the correct, I know where to look for that. It won't put the rest of the path there. So like, it's unnecessary when it's in Insta-up-to-date packages.
Okay.
And then we're off to the races. This is all we need.
Are we supposed to move that in?
Yep.
Yeah.
The install esd.dmg would go to installer files, base OS. Look at that. Look at that.
Isn't it glorious?
Actually freaking running.
Which DMG?
Install esd.dmg, I just copied to everybody's shared folder. So where you found caches before,
Yeah.
So do you have to create a simple name in front of the package name?
have to? No. Can for your own benefit?
Make
Yes.
tabs in front of that?
No. All 3 fields, please leave all 3 fields. So 1 tab, field, 1 tab, field, 1 tab, field.
Okay, what are the 3 things? We need simple name.
It's like friendly name for you, either URL over the network where you're storing that package, or DMG, or just the package name itself, the file name, right? And then the SHA-1. And it only will be just the name if you've already put it inside of insta-update packages. That's the only time where it's really, you're definite guaranteed it's gonna be able to find it. And look at that, look at that!
Where's the DMG go?
The install esd.dmg goes into InstaDMG, installer files, base OS. Look at that, look at that! Look at that! That is really so verbose. So why don't we open up console, which is just the simplest log viewer ever. And from the InstaDMG logs folder, imagine that, logs, imagine that, that's where it is. Here it goes. This is actually the echo of the installer command line binaries process. When you say installer verbose, you'll get the same exact output.
Out of curiosity, is this a fixed installer? Because what about the
Nothing is fixed about it, but
well, what about the certificate problem?
how am I getting around the certificate problem? I will open it up to the room for the people that are still here. Why does this have nothing to do with the certificate apocalypse? No. No. Yeah, right, because the packages were made after, we're not avoiding that. Only people who really know InstaDMG would know this answer, so I'm sorry that I'm stumping you with this. No. Yeah, there is. And it doesn't really do it in place, but it goes through every single sub package and then fixes it and pops it out. So this is because we have the cache folder. We have the cache file.
The cache is before the block list expired.
Because we're not running a full installer process. We're not saying, hey, all sub packages in the meta package of the os install.meta package, are you allowed to be installed at the command line? We're already done with that. We have the cache file. We're only doing the updates. This is our. If you don't have that, you don't have that. You have a flash drive? You know your licensing better than I. I didn't tell you to take it. I asked you if you had a flash drive.
I need to play catch up.
Oh yeah, no problem.
Cache folder.
So fixing expired receipts, when you unflatten and reflatten, it loses that certificate on it. And Greg Neagle made a tool to automate that process. It works on DMGs, it works on meta packages. You would need to if you didn't have that cache. Well, you would need to do that for the OS installer if you didn't have that. Sorry, just 1 second.
I didn't copy the cache folder. I don't know which one you mean.
Oh yeah, no problem. So
Line from this.
I'll tell you where we are after I know where you are, right? So you don't have insta-up-to-date cache. You have not replaced this entire caches folder. That would be in your shared folder. I copied it to your system while you wasn't looking. In shared, there's an install esd.dmg, and there's a base OS cache. Oh no, cancel. This is not actually a cache. This is the base OS. So first, I'm replacing this.
Okay.
You know what? I'm going to make this much faster because I like the command line for certain things. So,
Cache me up to the power. We just gotta run it.
yeah, right. I want to get to the good part. So this is going to be a new. I like this for my eyes. I like that when I want to tab like a word at a time. I like using option. So now I'm going to move. I'm going to have to be super user to move the entire caches folder to my 318, my root InstaDMG folder.
And you're in the city? Or New York?
Yep.
Whereabouts?
I am downtown.
Downtown Wall Street, downtown Chelsea.
Downtown Manhattan.
Oh yes, because I'm in Chelsea. That's what I was asking.
Why are you copying? Stop copying. So annoying. I used the wrong path. I thought it was going to be all cool, and I didn't end up doing it. So this is an installer base OS. So that was installer. Yeah, so that's done at least. And then for caches,
The Sophos installer does the same thing, where it actually requires, it expects that you're being logged in, so it runs the pre-flight scripts. So it has a pre-flight script, and it's moved some packages that requires that.
all right, that'll be done in a minute. And then we're 100% back to date. Yes, that was just a copy. I tried to make it faster by being too tricky. And then this, we no longer need this import disk thing as of 10.7 because the way that they distribute it as a download as a disk image, that disk image works just fine. For what we're doing today, we're processing 10.7. That's what's important to us, line images. So, and then less than a minute. Dun, 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 dun. The whole point is that a robot creates this for us, you know? We automate the process and we walk away because we're done.
You don't have any similar...
You back in action?
Not quite.
SIU's net restore preparation part?
For Windows.
Oh, for Windows. For generating, I talked about slipstreaming. Nlight was the one that I've used in the past to do things just fine. Like I needed drivers and a image. I've used Nlight. But ImageX, I don't even know if ImageX really has automation capabilities of just putting drivers. What's that? Nlight is like it? That we've heard of when it comes to specifically NLITE, all one word. It's been updated for 7, I'm pretty sure. There's an open source spin-off, I think, for Windows 7. So we were done with that. We're ready to run this. Hey, look at that. Hey, look at that. Yes, no? It didn't find config bases. Oh, it was looking in luggage examples. So I just need to fix that about the... Right, that's because of my guide. I led you wrong there. All we need is that anyway. And we had commented that. Now it'll find it. Yep, it found all of the packages that we specified. These are the updates. It's already done the OS install, so now it knows that it's targeting 10.7.3.
It's going to make an image.
It's going to make an image and it's going to put it in the output files folder, which is a subfolder inside of InstaDMG, so you know where to expect it. Come. Stupid layout. Oi.
So, I got my 3 little PKG files.
You have customized your 10.7 vanilla.
I updated I edited the vanilla config file.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I need to, I'm sorry, I missed what I'm supposed to do with the OS install image.
So from shared, to and your caches were already there, right? I'll let you know in a second.
Yeah, I think so.
Wait, how come neither of these?
Because that's the,
Huh?
I don't know.
Oh, no. Well, at least we have that, right? Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And then we're going to do that again, except we're going to go to... Damn it. It's trying to make a sandbox around the installer process so that when it does the extra installs, it thinks that it's on the unbooted system already and will therefore not try to look at root path on the system.
But it says here, there's a comment which says it doesn't work.
It does not work as of 10.6 because CH rooting broke. The way that they set up the security system as of 10.6, specifically around the installer process, broke that. Then what Carl did to get around that, it's like you don't bring a knife to a gunfight. He said, oh, okay, I'm going to inject the installer daemon process. And he replaced the system's installer daemon that would be running the actual install process with a custom one that was sandboxed inside of there. That broke in 10.7. So it's like the functionality has been turning down, unfortunately, when it comes to like as clean. Any package you can throw at it used to be a lot easier in 10.5. In 10.7, it's not gelled. YNMV. Or no warranty given or implied. Granted or implied. So this was caches.
I had no idea it existed. Like, I'm new to this whole thing. Like, I've only been getting hardcore into Macs. I know, like, I keep posting them back to enterprise and stuff.
Anyway.
Because I had nowhere else to go. And if I had known this existed, the other day I had a send question throughout the entire list, and it could have been answered in 30 seconds.
Where's that?
The IRC channel.
Oh, we're done now.
I never knew it existed.
Those are all the things that we needed to get in line. Work with me.
Okay.
Work with me. Thinking deeply. Looking for stuff. Why is it so slow? Why is it trying to download it?
Where's it downloading it from?
Directly from Apple.
So theoretically, what we're using this for?
Theoretically, what we're using this
What we're
for?
using this for in the real world is, or could be, pushing plist files into various places on end-user systems to control.
No. LocalMCX will manage the entire computer's settings of managed preferences so that we don't need to push plist files separately. We follow Greg Nichols' framework and the guidance in the book that he wrote. Oh, why do I don't have airport utility? I don't have airport utility in here? Why is it looking for 553? Because I didn't change the line from 553. Sorry, I don't know why I'm trying to build a 10.6 image when all we have is 10.7 stuff. So like the idea is that LocalMCX says we don't need to worry about individual users. We don't need to worry about file drop. We're doing a form of file drop, but we're doing it in the cleanest way possible. It's separated from the system. The first boot actually does all of this wrangling for us, where on first boot, it fixes the computer record so that we have you might want to apply managed preferences at a local desktop level or a local or a laptop level. So it creates this new node, says, hey, you're either a desktop or a laptop. I'll put both plists there and then tell you which one you are, system that you're running on. Then that computer object that's in a custom node has a group that it belongs to. A further abstraction, I know, right? But we talked about the nouns, that while it's way more vague to say computer group, the computer can be a part of that group, and that group can either say, hey, if you're a desktop, you'll have this energy setting. If you're a laptop, you'll have that energy setting.
All this stuff lives on the local hard drive. None of it lives in the user's home folder.
None of it, when you modify it at a once or often adverb, yes, it gets inherited into each new user that gets created on the system.
but I'm dealing with network users.
When you're dealing with network users, same deal, same difference. But when you're dealing with network users, you can do it in the central directory service, right?
I can, but
You don't have access to management over there?
no, I do.
Okay.
I
You can definitely make your life easier with that, if that is actually making your life easier, or you can deploy this in addition.
I find that it hasn't worked all that well.
The understanding of how effective it is to apply it, especially on a third-party level, like Apple's built-in stuff, is hard enough. It's like Safari is not in the preferences folder, right? It's not in library preferences. It's in library Safari.
Right.
You can still manage the best way to manage that stuff. It's the way to get like medieval on its butt is launch agents. Is every time you log in, it will assure a state of that file in that folder. And that's something that I would use a more powerful configuration management system with. Casper is, but it has a model to do something like LocalMCX with, but across all users way more granularly. Way more is relatively speaking. Radmine was like the real like medieval way of just bulldozing stuff that wasn't as you wanted it. Puppet is a way to very granularly say, hey, the contents of this path, launch agents will make sure that the keys are this way. I definitely have these bookmarks, et cetera, et cetera. That's a bunch of products I know.
Yeah.
And like,
I don't have unlimited amounts of money.
oh, Puppet's free.
So yeah, I mean that sort of lets.
Unlimited time would help.
What's that?
Unlimited time would be more helpful, I think.
Much of that either.
Yeah, right? We got a presentation on Puppet tomorrow.
Yeah. I will probably
Tomorrow or day after? Yeah. But I have some stuff to try to make Puppet easier for mere mortals.
Okay.
You get to go to the bar, I guess, is what happens when it's done. When it's done in output files, you will see 10 set, however you specified the name in the catalog file. Any other fun excitement? Fun excitement? Everybody okay back here?
It's looking for the packages, which is sort of odd because I do have.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It was my guide. Oh, so you...
I just put it.
Any name you wanted.
Yeah, I just put.
What did it say it couldn't find? I'm sorry. It said
No.
LocalMCX starter couldn't find. So that name, for whatever reason, is not adequate for it.
Oh, okay. So we have the packages here.
No, so like everything about that is fine.
Oh, I didn't like the short name.
I guess
Okay. So.
it's never not
All right, we
liked
can
a
just
short
delete it,
name
I don't
before.
So we don't really need a short name. We just need to put two tabs.
A tab, the friendly name, A tab, the name of package or path to package or URL, A tab, the SHA-1. You know what, let's try just going past it and see what the hell happens.
Okay. I think it's going to do the next one.
Yeah, it found it. So I don't know what it was about that line. Maybe the SHA-1 isn't matching? Did we modify anything about the package after we did that? Maybe, maybe not.
We did it.
Yeah.
It came up and all these SHA-1s were wrong.
If you copy paste that SHA-1 now that it's in from that exact directory, everything should be as reliable as it can be. Hi.
I don't have the installer list.
It is in the shared folder now. I moved it after the fact, so in users shared from the root of the hard drive.
Good question.
I'm going to get to that gentleman first just because he was waiting for me. I'll be right back. Hi.
We're trying to just sort of figure something out here.
Sure.
So is it possible that once you have local MCX implemented, you could remotely manage the specific plist file?
Yes. If you want to get that granular. And if you want that management headache of actually being able to reach out and touch these people to do maintenance on them. But the nice thing is that once you've updated it with Workgroup Manager, a nice GUI tool to interact with, you can push that out to the rest of them and they'll already have the settings applied.
We had been using Workgroup Manager via Active Directory
Sure.
to push out all of our plist files. Well,
Sure.
for whatever reason, Apple's come down, they can't figure out why it broke with our 10.7 broke with our Active Directory implementation. It's completely gone with Active Directory in 10.8. At least directory MCX is completely gone.
Sure. So that is why you'll notice with profiles that they don't give a good gosh darn about directory services. And where are they putting their R&D and research efforts? It's into lack of directory service.
Yeah,
but our stuff still does work. LocalMCX, 100%.
Yeah, well, I have 10 on here, and I was just looking through all the structure, and it all appears to be there, so.
Should very well continue to work.
I mean, because there's, unfortunately, is stuff that we need granular control over.
Imagine that, yeah, right? It's about your own threshold of pain when it comes to the management to reach out and touch these directories and make sure that those pllists don't get mangled. Or there's always launch agents. You go crazy with launch agents if you need it in individual users folders and you can't otherwise
But see, what we really
manage
need
it.
is like, for labs. Like, this
Yep.
lab, we want right click turned on. It's kind of like one of those. Like,
Yeah, you don't want to defaults write it until you're dead, right? Like defaults write it should be considered a hack, should be considered busy work instead of something that you programmatically attack, Puppet is something that I'm looking forward to when it comes to this granular file-by-file control. I only care about the stuff I care about. And everything else, let them be admins.
That's tomorrow, Lisa?
That is on the schedule. Ryan Coleman has like 3 sessions. It's crazy. You okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, it's running. That's fine.
Great.
I use InstaDMG right now. I'm trying to start to do the whatever we're doing here. The
LocalMCX or packages or.
No, the way that it's creating the image right now, using the catalog files.
Yes.
Insta up to date.
Oh, Insta up to date. Yeah.
Yeah, because right now what we do in the in installer files, we've got the base OS, the base updates. That's where the Safari and iTunes and all those packages are.
Right, you were doing them 01, 02, 03, 04. Yeah.
01 and all that stuff there too.
That's how it used to be.
Right. Now, what's the advantages, disadvantages of doing it that way versus the Insta up to date?
Not having to make directory structure every time and worry about the order in there instead of just like a file. And the fact that I'm updating the vanilla files all the time after it goes to the cooling off period.
Right.
Of like, hey, maybe they won't change the SHA again.
Yeah.
Maybe they won't use the same exact version name and yet change all the contents of the installer.
Okay.
I'm saying you don't have to run checksum.py and download this entire thing first.
Yeah.
Here's what it is, run svn update, and you'll have the update of all those catalog files.
Right, and so you just check out to download the latest InstaDMG, and then catalog files are updated with the Apple.
And the only feature request that people haven't asked for yet in this session is make it so I don't need SHA-1s on the things. And I'm like, sorry, I need you to guarantee what you have and you know which version you're installing.
You're asking for that, but you'd be sad if it weren't there.
Right?
I meant to install.
And it's kind of nanny-ish. It's kind of nanny-ish. Are you sure you wanted to install it? But.
I meant to install Java. I got flashback instead.
Yeah. So
wouldn't
to
do
convert
that,
from the old way to this way, you would just take all our packages and the custom packages.
Supposedly checksum.py can do an array.
Okay.
One package, this package, this package, this package.
You're going to use.
And after you get it spit out, throw them into the catalog file you're going to use in the order you want them to installed in, if there is any difference to it. In 10.6, for whatever reason, Safari needed to run last.
Okay.
Otherwise, the rest of the stuff didn't install.
And then obviously, if you update the package, you'd have to run the checksum again to get a new SHA for that.
Yep, absolutely. Anusha. Sorry. Is everything okay?
Just hanging. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for dealing.
I mean, one of the reasons I started with Macs was so I didn't type.
Oh, really?
So copy and paste and drag and drop on my phone. Sure. So
all right.
Tim's sitting here.
All right.
Tim knows how to type. And he's been typing.
Oh, great.
See, he's sitting here going.
He exaggerates. That's the nice thing. You don't have to type the path. You can just drag it.
That's right. That's
Yep. We were looking for optimizations. Nate, you had a feature request?
What was it?
It was not turning SHA-1s off so that you can just willy-nilly add whatever you want to the catalog file and not have it bark at you, because that's not going to get turned off.
Don't think that was
What
it.
did we say? No.
How are you guys doing, by the way?
It's
going.
It's going?
Just crank it away.
Rock and roll.
Closing programs that have been opened.
Right. Essentially, what does it say at the top of the terminal window?
InstaDMG bash.
It's running a bash process. You're in the InstaDMG folder, but it's running a bash process.
Right.
When it says LSOF, it's listing open files, and it's making sure that none of the installer process files have anything open on disk. Then it runs disk-util repair permissions, so nobody needs to put that in their first boot. Don't worry about that.
I had there and took that when you told me to.
Yeah, if you in console open up the debug log, you'll see exactly what it's running right now. Like, yeah, closing files that are open on disk is not particularly straightforward. Oh,
Did you publish your first boot, your revised first boot you were talking
That's
about?
the one we downloaded.
Oh, it's the one that's, all right, great,
Yeah.
awesome.
Sir,
So I copied that file over. I have my 3 files. I modified.
you copied it into installer files base OS?
My feature request is still I just want it to change.
Because that's where it needs to be where InstaDMG is expecting it.
Where does it need to be?
So we don't need to mount it. It's going to be mounted by, well, it's just going to be checked by the installer process because we skipped this whole step. That's the optimization in place. It's going in base OS because it is the base OS. Okay?
And then how do I run it?
And then the guide here, this is the Snow Leopard version. So you can just take this same line, because it is the same. Go to the beginning of that line, just change that path. And then instead of 10.6, and then Mac is the, oh, there it goes. And we'll see if everything else worked. It'll tell us, whoa, why is it trying to download that? Is because the caches, because the most important is the base image cache. We should have replaced this, so I'm going to do it all at once with I'm going to move this to this. Why does it do that every time? So annoying. Come on. Anyway, really, if I can't run move in the command line, I should be fired. Luckily, they're not paying me. It hurts in a tender location. I've done this 3 times so far. Not been able to fix the fucking path. Pardon my French.
That's German.
You know there's a town in Germany called... Yeah. They're thinking about changing their name because they keep stealing their road signs.
I would steal road signs.
Hey, it obviously did a repair permissions.
Never had some weird happen with one of my line deployments. I go, shit, fix permissions. Never finds anything wrong because
The only thing that repair permissions is applicable for are installs gone bad. It is only looking at the receipts that you had and making sure that in LSBOM it matches. That's the only part of the system that's actually going to check. So Voodoo is a really good way to describe it because it's only going to do a very limited set of tasks. Rock and roll. Found it all, and all of your checksum.pies were valid. It made sure that you are good at copy and paste. We're accurate with exactly what you needed. Okay, you can have this back now.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to look at questions while we're waiting for stuff to process. Hello. Done! We have a winner! All right. No, really, you think you just... Rock and roll. I don't have any more Jeopardy questions. I should have brought more Jeopardy questions. That was fun. I can't believe that I went through what I thought was going to be a presentation and a half. Okay, the relative merits of using LocalMCX versus default rights, system library, user template, blah. Okay, so some preferences can only be modified in the non-localized, not the English.lproj. But worse than that, let's not mess with that because, as I actually said in the presentation, Apple owns /system. It's theirs. /library, you're allowed to customize some locations inside of it without actually, destroying stuff. Your users folder you actually own. The way that LocalMCX benefits you versus defaults right or plist buddy out as often as you want to, is the fact that it's a framework that you're working in that Apple actually supported as of 10.6 in their official documentation. There was a video on Apple's site about, hey, you can customize the local host computer record and apply everything to that one noun, a computer called localhost that's in the default node. We don't like to mess with Apple's stuff, though, because Apple likes taking their toys back. So therefore, we created our own node. As of Greg Neagle experimenting with it, he got tipped off by Carl Kuhn back in freaking Nickel and NetInfo days. You can create your own node. You can put your own management inside of that node. And the framework continues to work because Apple is not actively deprecating it. I don't know. I think it's going to be around. However, I know that user template looks really attractive. Please stay out of it. I would rather people move to our bright future of launch agents. If you need to really customize fine-grained stuff inside of users' folders that MCX doesn't cover. And then you are running defaults, right? You are running plist buddy, but at least the framework is launch agents, something that you know is going to be there. Monkeying around in Apple's domain is not good for our health, and we won't have a warrantyable system. If we make the launch agents, we're warrantying that actually does what we know it's going to do. If it breaks, we'll know about it. It won't be Apple changing something and then it's broken permanently. Just like that is the idea behind that. Is all install esd.dmg from the Mac App Store hardware specific? Anybody know? No. And Google is very happy about this because they have a lot of Macs and they used to have a lot of images because there used to be a lot of hardware specific kernel extensions per OS build. And there was a lot of hardware that came out in between 10.6.3 and 10.6.8. A lot of different types of hardware. So install esd.dmg covers a good amount. They've kind of just messed with us when it comes to EFI and firmware, but all in all, the OS is pretty darn universal. And InstaDMG just reinforces that fact, so we don't need to resort to golden masters as much as we might have.
Hopefully you can answer this without breaking NDA, but does it so far look like Mountain Lion has a similar install ESD?
It's distributed the same way, isn't it? That's public knowledge.
Okay. I've yet to get a developer.
I've only used it for something, like InstaDMG, and then I put it away. Real scripters use VI. VI is symlinked to Vim, so anybody that says real scripters use VI, it's not installed on your system. I only type VI because it's symlinked, and I like Vim. Like on Ubuntu, they don't have Vim by default. I can't understand VI. Like I'm floating with Vim. No kidding, the text on the dialog boxes was too small. I'm sorry, I changed all of my slides yesterday to be a little more sharp. Are there GUI tools? That is not the question this person is asking. For creating .mobile config files, absent, meaning without, 10 server profile manager. You mean offline. Yeah, if you have a web page, if you have a web browser and a running profile manager instance, you can connect to it and download as many profiles as you want. You can, and then you can apply it locally. And like I said, it might run roughshod over anything you didn't want to actually manage with them, as long as it's like anything in that interface. But the real question is .mobile config for Macs, right? Is there any other way that we can generate that besides Profile Manager? No. Not ones that's going to be warranted by Apple to apply.
I think with the configurator utility.
Apple Configurator.
Yes, I believe that creates .NET config.
It creates mobile configs for iOS. Period.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Period. Case-sensitive URLs make Tim Berners-Lee cry. You're absolutely correct. This person is referring to my short vanity URL, where it's because Bitly has to show the difference between a capital O and a lowercase o. What am I going to do? And really, what is that reference of the chocolate-covered squirrel? Yes, food coma is still in place. That's really kind of it. Anybody else? Will the steps be the same to use LocalMCX once we're back at work, or is this specific to the lab session? The LocalMCX being able to be applied, it's a little too meta. I'm sorry. I went into detail in how LocalMCX works, and I went into the specific package last year. So it's like first I create a computer record in this non-default node. By non-default, I mean the one that's on everybody's systems. It's called default. So this is our custom node. So first I have this computer record because it's a specific type of hardware. I want to distinguish between laptops and iMacs. iMacs are not mobile, so they might have different energy settings, might apply different stuff to it. So that's the first distinction I make, is that with LocalMCX, I'm specifying what the computer record is that is this system. I tie it to the system once I create the local node. Then I have computer groups that they can have access to. So if I have the same management settings, like I do one computer group per setting. This is Greg Niegel's method of deploying this. I use one computer group per setting. He actually does it per package in Monkey right now. Each individual plist file has its own package, which is a way that you can maintain it on the systems. And then these computer records have membership to those specific computer groups, therefore they get applied. So therefore I have a little bit of modularity between what I'm deploying, but when it comes to going back to your environment, as long as you set up that node, and as long as the computer record is tied to the system by having the MAC address applied to it, really is the only thing that keys off of it, you're good to go. Then it knows what system it's running on and that it is supposed to apply that management to that system. C is truly for cookie.
Greg Niegel's book on that is really, really good.
EMMP, Enterprise Mac Managed Preferences. Plug, plug, plug. My boss was like the editor of like the entire Enterprise Mac like series, and he was like, "Wow, that's an awesome idea." When he heard that they were writing it, you're not going to sell any copies. You guys realize how niche this is? And they were like, "No, we're going like this is what admins need." And we're like, he's like, "I'm all for it." So buy two. Give it to your suite mate.
So if you have that local computer record that's tied with the MAC address
to the machine,
how do you tie that to the computer group?
The computer, like if you take this and you,
is that through
so
CL
locally? So this is how you're going to be able to spread out and multiply, right? First, you have this management applied to one system. Open up Workgroup Manager, make some more computer groups, apply management to them. Because you will therefore be saying, okay, I'm already in the LocalMCX node, you'll be creating plists there, new computer groups. Then you can deploy those. When you are creating the computer groups and you're adding those computer records as membership, that ties the subsequent ones that you'll be creating to the management that's applied to the system. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Yeah. I'm getting too meta, aren't I?
The script, the fixed computer record script goes through the process and documents it.
Yep.
So it's actually just read the script and it actually does all the steps.
It tells you there's only some like assurances that it makes for like sanity checking of is the GUID on the computer records correct, so that you know what you're expecting. There isn't anything wrong with that thing, considering everything keys off of those computer records. Is it possible to bundle all of the 5 firmware updates, all of the updates, into a bundle, or should it be applied via patch management like Reposado? So, should it be applied by Monkey? It can. Have I gotten it to work downloading directly from Apple? No. So I've pointed, when I've done deployments and I've needed EFI updates on, say, a bunch of laptops, I've had them pass through directly to Apple's software update service to get EFI updates. I can't put it in my image really. Like, I don't want to mess around with EFI updates. Monkey can handle the reboots required and point it at the Apple software update service, but I don't load the EFI update itself into Monkey because I don't want to worry about variations between hardware. I want it to be whatever logic Apple is using when you have a workstation phone home to them. I want that to just be followed because that's a warrantyable state of affairs. What time were we supposed to end? 4:15. We still have time. Any other questions? Mm-hmm. When you re-image a machine, your custom local MCX settings are still the custom local MCX settings because you've created that computer record and the first boot script. Well, as part of this first boot script, it has a launch daemon that runs it. It says, hey, what's my MAC address? And it puts it into that custom computer record. So it's doing that every single time we deploy the image because it has to specify it to that piece of hardware. That's the thing you can't generalize about what MAC address is on the system that you're running on. Anything else? Greg Neagle, Enterprise Mac Managed Preferences. There you go. With Edward Marzak. Ed Marzak is doing a presentation on, was it logs? I believe it's logs. He's another great person to ask when it comes to how to get managed preferences into Active Directory, R2, 2008 R2. He has a 19-step guide of doing that. LocalMCX is not necessarily the best way to deploy things if you want everything to be centralized. And you don't need to worry about it as long as your AD admins have allowed certain things to be in place. You're not necessarily modifying, you're extending schema. Yeah.
Do you have benchmarks on building Winchester drives versus SSDs?
I certainly don't have benchmarks on Winchester drives because I can't say that I know what they are.
Spinning ladders or...
So, my SSD inside my machine is a Samsung, which are supposed to be faster than the Toshibas. The Toshibas are supposed to have better garbage collection. But I have an Agility that I connect over Thunderbolt. I get like 180 megabytes per second transfer on it. And I can do a 10.7 vanilla without downloading, if everything is cached, in 11 minutes. So this, 37 minutes, so that's what, like a 300% performance improvement. Of course, a RAID will be nice and fast, even if you only have spinning platters. It's really I/O. 1 gig of RAM hurts anybody. It makes baby Jesus cry, but it's not the bottleneck. As long as the installer process is unhindered by CPU, and as long as when we don't have good CH routing, we don't have good jailing, like you need Safari closed. Please don't run other installer processes. Please don't mount and unmount disk images or drives. That would just make it more stable, but you can usually browse Firefox and do whatever the heck you want on the system. I know places that have SVN checkout automated. Pupin Bruyen, on both the Twitter @Brienne and in the IRC, is working on making a continuous integration system with InstaDMG so that he always has the newest vanillas as soon as I push when I commit to SVN.
don't build a 10.7 on a 10.6, don't.
Please don't.
So
Please don't run on 10.6 server in particular, because it's 10.6 server. Isn't that your production system? You know, like, you can try, but it's probably, you won't get the guaranteeable, warrantyable results that you'll then deploy to however many thousands of machines, you know?
same thing for using this to build 10.6 images?
Same thing for using that to build 10.6 images. YMMV, TV Sutton at Cygnus, Cygnus at TV Sutton on the Twitter. He's in here around Timothy Sutton. He says that he can build many different versions by modifications that he's made to the source code. Open source, go ahead and ask him what he's doing, but I can't warranty that working well for anybody. I wouldn't want to run an installer process for a completely different operating system.
It doesn't work well.
I mean, maybe it works fine for the limited set of stuff you need. I don't know. Yeah, that's not so much your mileage may vary, but like Jeremy Reichman, he was building like Puma images. Puma, Jaguar, leopard, tiger.
Dedicated hardware and then having multiple volumes.
And he just was able to make it happen with like, I think 10.5. Don't know. Anything else in particular? Anything else?
Yeah, that LocalMCX package.
Mm-hmm. If you look in it, in the script in particular, like the package is just a delivery mechanism, right? It's like profiles are just a delivery mechanism for always managed preferences. Really, give or take, right? So the package says, okay, there's a process that applies LocalMCX to the system. It sets up the directories, it puts the plist files in place, then a script needs to run and says, hey, I'm going to tie you to this machine. At the top of the script that ties it to this machine, there's a link to Greg's blog posts about it. Really, MMMP, Enterprise Mac Managed Preferences, that's the tome. I tear out each page and eat it one at a time. I just love the book. The Practice of System and Network Administration by Tom Limoncelli, like, ooh, like good times. Like each and every page in there is really like sacred to me, but like you can just read his blog post and get the very condensed version, but sometimes he has like the comments at the blog post where he updates it and makes it, really brings it home. Enterprise Mac Managed Preferences is the entire scope, you know? It's like, you could approach it this way, you're gonna have to troubleshoot it on the end this way. Here's the different ways that you can deploy them. So like, yes, the documentation in the package of how you use the package, not so much, sorry. Links to the blog post about how it was conceived to use this method are there. And all of the rest of the blog posts are linked off of that page, I think. How can I make InstaDMG of line recovery? So, where's the doc? Oh yeah. How can I make InstaDMG line recovery? So this is the answer to that question. Can you make an InstaDMG of the line recovery? I haven't. Just because I'm the maintainer of the InstaDMG project, just like people who are building stuff on Jaguar and Puma, it's probably possible. I don't want to do it because I don't need it and FileVault 2. If I need to boot into FileVault 2 and make sure that whatever Apple's doing in there is continuing to work, why would I want to customize that really? 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 I'll give them their own partition, just like Jamf has their own user, and you have to use SSH, and there's other things that it's relying on. I'll use my own custom stuff that's separate. I like a modular thing where I'm not messing with what Apple's got. And I'm assuming if you're trying to generate with InstaDMG a recovery partition, you're going to use it instead of Apple's, and let's not. You know, y'all understand your environments better than I do, and I'm totally not so much sympathetic, but empathetic as to, you know, this works for me. This is as much as I can get done right now. This is as little as I need. More power to you.
Well, and almost all the deployment methods have it all built in there.
Almost all of the deployment methods have what built in there?
The recovery.
The fact that you can get a generic recovery partition on there. This is an unchanging static thing. Yes?
Just be wary about relying on different versions, because there's definitely different versions of the recovery partition.
Yeah.
And I'll leave it at that.
So the easiest way to get a recovery partition onto something that doesn't already have it, does anybody know? You already have image system. How are you going to get a recovery partition on it? Which is?
I don't know. I look it up when I need it.
The Mazak procedure. Extreme prejudice. There is a generate recovery USB disk. That package, run in Deploy Studio or something, will resize a partition for the recovery partition and will copy it in. Yes, you're actually thinking of Clay Cavanagh's. He's the one who wrote that up. But there is a post on doing that. There's also Graham Gilbert from England, Pebble IT, has a way of deploying it in a package. How you get the recovery partition onto stations is all up to you. But the delivery methods, there's the Google way that's scriptable. There's the Pebble IT way, which is in a package and deployable. I'm not sure how he's actually deploying that. You could ask him. He's on the Twitter, Graham Gilbert, @GrahamGilbert. And there's my way, which is dumb simple, which is loaded into Deploy Studio. I said before I don't use Deploy Studio for anything except just rolling out an image. Actually, I have used that for the recovery partition, but I've needed it so infrequently. And it just works like a charm. It says I'm installing a package, and it actually does it from the booted volume, because that's how Deploy Studio punts in a lot of ways, is it makes it a one-time script.
I have an unrelated question about the image we all just built.
Sure.
The user
I tested that, by the way, so it should work.
The user account that we created, is that only created on first boot?
It is not only created on first boot when it comes to the user record. When it comes to the home folder, yes, it's only created the first time you log in.
But if I look, okay, but if we looked in private VARDB, DS local, there would be an entry for that account.
Yes, sir. And there would be a record for the MCX admin that you could then use Workgroup Manager to continue to customize the local MCX, the MCX node. How about this, the last thing, and then I'm going to give you guys a big round of applause for staying with me the entire way. How am I going to put a password on the MCX admin in the custom MCX node? I don't have a password right now on that user. You can't log into it because the password is just star and it knows that it's invalid. How do I do it? Manually with Discal. It's totally ghetto, but I can't go through the process of trying to modify create user to look against a non-default node. So I'm just using Discal at the command line with Discal password. I do that manually on a system I need to modify. Luckily, I only need to modify it one place, then I can push that plist any place else I want it to be. But just to let you know, I definitely know that there's holes in my logic when it comes to that particular piece of the implementation. And with that, thank you. These are hardcore. This is about how many people came last year for the entire thing. So I really appreciate everybody actually sticking it out.